There's no point having a Ferrari unless you can drive it fast. Although I supported Rishi Sunak for the Tory leadership, I actually called for him to take over in January, I accepted the result of Liz Truss and have been foursquare behind her and her vision for radical growth. I was persuaded that whilst tax cuts involved borrowing and a bit of inflationary pressure, it would move our economy away from the long-term legacy of tax and spend to low tax and high growth. Plus, these measures in that mini budget promised to prevent a long and deep recession, something borne out by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, who admitted this week the mini budget would boost growth, taking the UK to the top of the G7 in terms of economic expansion. Well, all of that, of course, went with the departure of the highly talented and clever Kwarteng, to whom the PM delivered a quasi-karate chop. A quasi-chop. Cobra Quasi, the Quasi Kid. And I've pushed back on needless personal attacks on Liz Truss, a talented and highly experienced politician. But at this press conference today, she was dressed in black, cutting a figure of someone in attendance at her own funeral. She sacked Kwasi Kwarteng, but didn't blame him for this mess, either because she's afraid of making an enemy of her ex-chancellor or because she admits she shares the blame for the current situation. At just over 7 minutes, the press conference wasn't much longer than your average cartoon. And I'm afraid to say it was a Mickey Mouse performance from Truss herself. Her answers to the tiny handful of questions that she took from journalists were so robotic they put Theresa May, Peter Crouch and the Terminator to shame. Well, I'm afraid to say that Truss's political future looks terminal now. She should have stood by her Chancellor, stood by her mini-budget, all of it, and crunched the numbers to the satisfaction of the Office for Budget Responsibility at the end of this month as planned. The economic case for what she was doing was right, but she buckled under political, not economic pressure, and that is profoundly disappointing. Truss looked like a hostage today, a passenger in this crisis, and she didn't even know the names of the journalists that would be questioning her, which made the press conference, with all of its long pauses, more awkward than a Miliband family reunion. Liz Truss's vision for a low-tax, high-growth economy was and is the right one. A richer country with a high national income is by far the best way to reduce the deficit, pay for public services and support the poorest in our society. It's sad that we live in an unequal society, but we do. We live in an unequal society. We need rich people who pay a disproportionate amount into the Treasury's coffers. The top-rate tax cut was an attempt to attract even more people to live here, invest here, spend their money here and pay their taxes here. The wealthy are the goose that lay the golden eggs. Well, in the last couple of weeks, after a series of devastating and needless U-turns, that goose is cooked and the eggs are on Liz Truss's face. She should have stuck with her vision. She should have gone down fighting. But when she relented on the top-rate tax cut, she was done for. The media, Tory backbenchers, the opposition and the markets smelt blood. By scrapping that plan to reduce taxes for the wealthiest, she's given them more than an armful. It's been a blood transfusion. And China sympathiser, lockdown-loving, zero-COVID globalist Remainer Jeremy Hunt in the Treasury was the final insult. I'll be dealing with him in an hour's time in my Take at 10. Meanwhile, a Conservative government is now going to crank up corporation tax on businesses as we enter a downturn. How does that end, do you suppose? Cancelled investment, shrinking budgets for research and development, and laid off staff. Well done, everyone. Scrapping tax cuts for struggling businesses, you know, those organisations that create national income and employ people, means Truss's Premiership is now like a Ferrari with the speed limited to 20 miles an hour. She should have put her foot down in more ways than one. But this fumbling and equivocal performance today inspired no one, the markets, the media, and most crucially, her own backbenchers. They're now more nervous than Gary Glitter at a branch of PC World. I want Liz Truss to succeed, but by completely surrendering to the anti-growth coalition, she gave them an inch and they've taken a mile. And Liz Truss's defenestration of Kwasi Kwarteng makes it highly likely she will follow him through that hole in the window in Downing Street. This was a bad day for Liz Truss, a bad day for the economy, and a bad day for Britain. I hope I'm wrong, but like the turkey on the 25th of December, it looks like Truss will be stuffed by Christmas. It turns out we didn't pull a cracker.